So, welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight. I'm Judith Koba, and today we are going to dive into the field of etymology. And no, it is not boring. So, I have a wonderful guest today. His name is Pierre Sabak, and his official website is pierresabakbooks.com. There you can purchase all kinds of things. His books, he has written several, among them Holographic Culture and The Murder of Reality. And he also has a wonderful YouTube channel, and I highly recommend that you subscribe to his channel. So, and now, without further ado, welcome to Night
Hi.
Flight.
Thank you very much. I look forward to taking off. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be on your show. So thank you very much. We were discussing behind the scenes who or what the Elohim are, and I think that is perhaps a very good question to actually deal with. I think the question of who the Elohim are and how the Elohim relate to the Watchers is very important, and it's very integral to understand this in order to deconstruct religious and also mythological symbolism. So we'll begin there. The Elohim, in the Aramaic, Elohim means the high ones, and the high ones is a term which is used to refer generically to the gods. Now, the Elohim etymologically are interconnected with Erin, which are the Watchers. Now, the Watchers, the word is polymorphic, so it's a polymorphic symbol. So Erin, the Watchers, is also translated as the Shining Ones. And so the Watchers are described as the Shining Ones, and the Shining Ones refer to the Seraphim. So we find the same convergent wordplay between Seraphim, Sopher for Watcher, and Serapha, which is fire. Or again, in the Aramaic, the Erin, which is interconnected to Erin, which is a Watcher or a Shining One. So the Watchers or the Shining Ones is a reference to the Seraphim. And the Seraphim are these non-human angels, and this is important to understand. Now, the non-human angels are described generically as the host. And this is a very important word when we actually go into the Judaic traditions. So, for example, when we look at Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of the host, the Lord of the host is connected to Sabaoth host, Sava, which is an army, Sefer, which is a seraph, and Sevet, which is a crew of a vessel. So the Lord of the host, Yahweh Sabaoth, in the biblical text, is understood to be this commander of the angelic host, but specifically, he is the commander of the seraphic host. And so this is very important to understand. So there are these, if you like, two groups of angels which can be represented as the Watchers or the Shining Ones, which interconnect with the proto-human host or the human host, which are the cherubim. And so, if you like, there is this, the human host is typically represented with a sword. So you have this etymological relationship between cherub, which is a cherub, and keruv, which is a sword. And so within religious symbolism, particularly when they want to represent that the human host and the non-human host appear together, typically you will have an angel, and the angel will be carrying a sword. So keruv, a sword, relates to cherub, which is a cherub. And he'll be seated on what is known as a throne chariot. Now, the throne chariot is a representation in the Aramaic of the opening wheels. Now, generically, that is used to refer to a flying saucer. So we refer to a flying saucer. They refer to a spinning wheel. And one of the representations of the spinning wheel is a combination of the wheel with a throne. Now, typically, the throne chariot would be represented with a wheel, and around the wheel, there would be a serpent. And so this would depict the seraphic host. So the combination of a human angel with a sword sitting on the throne chariot combined with a serpent would indicate both the human and non-human host, which are in alliance together and which appear together within symbolism. And again, when we look at modern ufology, the combination of the non-human angel and the human angel often go together. So they are juxtaposed together within the religious symbolism. So, and I think that this is very interesting when we actually look at what I term in holographic culture as the scaphological tradition. Now, scaphology, scapto, to dig out or to carve out, is a Greek word. Scaph, which is a ship, refers to the study of ships. Now, this is a classified tradition. It's a hidden tradition. Now, the etymology of classified is coming from classis, which is a naval fleet. And a naval fleet actually denotes this angelic tradition, because the angels themselves are represented as sailors. We alluded to this in the beginning, when we said that there was a relationship between Sabaoth the host, or Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of the host, and Sevet, which is a crew member of a vessel, which interconnects with Teva and Ark or a boat. So
what do you mean when you say host?
Okay, now this is a very important, yes, that's a very good point here. Host denotes an army. So in the Hebrew, Sabaoth, which is the host, interrelates to Sava, which is an army. As we said, Sefer is a seraph, which is the seraphic host. So this can be understood as an army, but it's represented in particular as a naval host, which is used to denote these heavenly crew members of these heavenly vessels. So there's this interconnection between Sabaoth host, Savar and army, and it's interconnected with Sevet, a crew member of a vessel, and Teva, which is an ark. So again, this symbology is polyglottal. It's found also within the Greek. When you look at the Greek example, for example, you see that there's a relationship between archon, which is an angel or a ruler, and olkas, which is a large vessel. Again, we would say in the English and in the Latin, ark, which is a vessel, or which interconnects with the archons. Now, the arcs are circular. As we said before, they were round. So the English word arc denotes a curve, which is denoting this round vessel, which is represented as an opening wheel. The wheel is often combined with the serpent. In Judaic symbolism, it's combined with the eyes. Now, the eyes represent the watchers. And again, the circle is often fiery as well to denote the fiery watchers. Now, this is actually important when we're looking at the host or the naval tradition, because as I said before, classis means a fleet and is denoting the naval tradition, which is classified, it's restricted, and it's this angelic tradition. And again, it's going back into polymorphic symbolism. So words have multiple meanings. So for example, Malak, an angel, is polymorphic of Malak, which is a sailor. So the angels are sailors, and this is a very important to understand when you're actually looking at the watchers and the non-human representation of the host. Now, another word for the angels in the Aramaic is Zar. Zar is an angel, but it's a polymorphic symbol. It also means one who is strange, one who is a visitor, one who is an alien. So the angels are synonymous with an alien within the Aramaic. And is connected. So Zar, an angel, is connected to Sira, which is a boat. So this is another important signifier when we're looking at the angels. Yeah.
This is the word Tsar. Is that written like the Russian Tsars?
Yes. Well, this is very important. Yes, it is interconnected. In the Aramaic, Tsar, an angel, is related to Tsar, which is a prince. Okay. So remember that the angelic lineage is connected to royalty. And this is found in English with the word kingship. Okay. In Hebrew and Arabic, Malak, an angel, is related to Malak, a sailor, Melech, which is a king. In English, we would say kingship. So the lineage of the king is derived from a boat, and the boat is understood to be an angelic vessel. So this is important when we're looking at the symbols. But again, we're finding similarities also. For example, the Arabic word Amir, which is a prince, is related to Amara, which is the fleet. Again, in these traditions of Sarif in Arabic, which is a lord, is related to Safina, a boat. Again, lordship. In the Greek, archon, an angel or a ruler, polymorphic, so the angel and the ruler comes from this angelic lineage, is related to olkas, which is a large vessel. Now, the terminology archon or arcane, which is to rule, is actually a derivative of the etymology akan, a Babylonian word meaning a seraph. Again, it's closely interconnected with the Semitic word akka, which is to talk or to speak. So the dragon likes word games, and this is what I refer to as the artifact. Now, the artifact is the alien code within language, and it works on polyglottal symbols, so word plays which are repeated throughout multiple language. the languages. These are polyglottal symbols, and this is a code which, if you like, when deconstructed, reveals the existence of the artifact. The artifact is this code, and it's very interesting when we look at the code and how it plays out in many different languages. So, for example, if we wanted to give an example of what the artifact is, and in particular these polyglottal symbols or these parallel thought formations, we could see that in English there's a relationship between God and dog. Now, this is not coincidental. The dog in this respect is astrological of the dog star, which is Sirius, and therefore the vicar will in English wear a dog collar. But this is a signifier of the dog star. Our militaries will wear dog tags. Again, this is a signifier of the seraphic host and the seraphic tradition. As I've maintained within the occult tradition, there is a partition of knowledge. There's a partition between the humanist tradition, or these proto-human angels, which are the cherubim, and then you've got the second tradition, which is the seraphic tradition, which are these non-human angels. Now, in the classic, yep.
When you said, you talked about sailors and ships, is that also the reason why we have the word worship?
Yes, it is. So not only does it interconnect, not only does the classical or classified tradition interconnect with the government, the ship of state, gubernatio, which is to govern a ship, which is the ship of state, but also we find that there are religious signifiers which appertain to the boat. For example, the Ark of the Covenant. Ark is a signifier of this angelic vessel. But you would find in English a connection between the nave of a church and navis, which is the Latin word for a boat. Again, within the Greek, you have Nos, which is a boat, Naus, which is a temple sanctuary. And the temple sanctuary is used to demarcate the boat. The reason for this is that these angelic vessels were typically buried at religious sites, and you find this in the symbolism throughout all of the world. I mean, to give an example, if you wanted to go into Japanese symbolism, and this is, I'm not an expert on Japanese symbolism, but it's something that I touch upon in my book, Holographic Culture, because I just wanted to give the readership this idea that the culture, that the source occults or the representation of these boats or vessels are depicted universally throughout all cultures. The artifact is found throughout all cultures. So, for example, in Japanese, you have utsu no fune. It means a hollow ship. Now, in the Edo prints, the hollow ships are represented as flying saucers. And again, in the traditions, the hollow ships were said to have seeded the Japanese people and to have installed the Japanese monarchy. But it's a polymorphic word. So, utsu no fune also means a hollow tree. And so, therefore, trees, particularly within the Shinto shrines, are used, hollow trees are used to demarcate the parameter of the shrines. And this is a symbol of these Japanese circular vessels. Again, typically these vessels, when you find depictions of ships or boats within the shrines, you'll often have the character like so. Okay, now that character is used to denote a gateway, or it looks like a gateway, but in the Japanese, the character means circle, because these are round or circular vessels which were buried at these shrines. And so this is a conformity or something which is universal and is found encoded throughout all religions, which is the scaphological tradition. The scaphological tradition is the study of these angelic boats or vessels, and is interconnected to what we would describe as disclosure, the apocalypse, apocalyptin, which is to unveil, to disclose. So this is very important. And I think when we look at disclosure, we can see that we've had partial disclosure. We've had partial disclosure for thousands of years. It's been there within the symbolism. But the problem is that the symbols have been distorted by the priesthood. I refer to this element of the priesthood as the disciperati. The word disciperati is coming from the Latin etymology to deceive, but again, the disciple is led through levels of initiation, and these levels of initiation are based upon deception. And we're finding this subterfuge also within the symbology as well. So the symbol may appear to represent one thing, but it's actually representing another idea. And so this is key to understanding this. And when you begin to look at the symbolism, so for example, within the Japanese symbolism, you have the Tengu. The Tengu are these reptilian entities. Now, there's a connection between Tengu and Tango, which is the Japanese word for word. So again, the Tengu like word games, and they're interconnected with language. But the terminology Tengu means heaven's dog, and the Tengu are typically represented standing on a dog with a flower or a star. Again, this is a visio paranomasia. So within representation, whether it's in Babylonian representation or the Japanese representation, the flower is used to denote a star. This is because that it was believed that the Elohim seeded the earth, and this is understood within the occult tradition. Now, within the Japanese system of representation, it links into Hanawa, I'm trying to remember the word now, but it links into what is known as the language of the flowers. And the language of the flowers is this secret discourse which is used to represent the opening wheels or to represent these angelic vessels, the Utsu no Fune. So, for example, within the Japanese mythology, you have a princess who is born from a type of bamboo cane, which is split open by a woodman, but the black bamboo cane is used as a double signifier. Is used to represent this hollow vessel, this hollow tree, Utsu no Fune, which is a hollow tree. So if you like, the hollow cane is paired up with the hollow tree, which are these circular vessels or these round ships. So we're seeing that there is this uniformity of symbolism. And I want to go back, if you like, to the Tengu and the heaven's dog, which is the seraphic tradition. Yeah, please.
You said they seeded Earth.
Yes.
So what do you mean exactly?
Okay. Right. Okay. Within the biblical and the Quranic tradition, it describes that the Elohim created man from a drop of sperm. Mm-hmm. The implication within the Quran is that there was a pre-existent model of man, which I refer to as a proto-human, which was planted upon the earth. So this idea of panspermia. And again, within the Greek traditions, panspermia was referring to the seeding of the earth by the Elohim. Now, what's very interesting is that within the different traditions, the Elohim are either revered as, if you like, as God. So the word Ella is where you get the Arabic word Allah for God, the supreme deity, the supreme God. But the Gnostics argued that the Elohim were imposter gods, that they, if you like, elevated themselves above the absolute, which, if you like, is the field of consciousness, in which everything is materialized, and therefore they were deceptive. But irrespective, yeah.
So would you say that these Elohim are actually what people call aliens?
Yes. Yes, okay. Yes, I would. And I think that this is again, we can see similar types of word plays between the watchers. So, for example, as I mentioned before, Erin is a watcher or a shining one. This would interconnect with the word Seraph, which is fire, Sopheth, which is a watcher. But we're seeing the same word play with the greys. So graze, gaze to look, and glaze, which is luster. Again, this idea of shining, it has this connotation of shining. So these word plays are polyglottal. And so, yes, the watchers connect to the shining one, the Akzari, the brothers of light. Again, in Aramaic, the word Akzari, a brother of light, is interplayed or is interchangeable with the Akzari, which is a brother of an angel. But remember, the word Zar is used to refer to an angel or an alien, so the brothers of aliens, they're one and the same thing. So the word Zar, which we said in the Aramaic is an alien or an angel, is found in its modern Hebrew rendition, Kazar, which is a spaceman or an alien. Kazar, K meaning living, Zar, which is an alien, one who is strange, alien, a foreigner, a visitor. So the Kazar, the Kazar is a space alien. Now the Kazar interconnect with the Elake, which is a high creature. The high creature with the Elohim, but they could dematerialize. So they were also known as the Ruach Elohim, the high spirits. And this has caused a lot of confusion, certainly within ufology. So for example, ufologists will say, no, we're dealing here with just, if you like, a spiritual force, which is just some kind of field which scrambles the human mind, for example, or no, we're dealing with flesh and blood entities. Now, when you look at the tradition of the jinn, what you're actually dealing with is both. They have deconstructed the mechanics of reality. They have deconstructed the waveform. So in other words, very similar to an advanced, very similar to what you'd find on Star Trek, where they can just dematerialize and beam themselves up. These entities can do the same. They understand that reality is manifested both as a particle, but also as a waveform, and they have control over that waveform. And this is why in my book, Holographic Culture, I refer to them specifically as a holographic culture, because they are masters of the waveform. And again, within the traditions of the jinn are said to be spirits. Again, the etymology of jinn is coming from the Old Semitic noun jen, which is a serpent or worm, but is related to jana, to hide or to conceal. So the jinn are very much equivalent to the Ruach Elohim, the high spirits. The high spirits are the Elohim. They are one and the same. So this is important. Yeah.
So where does this belief come from that angels are the good guys and the aliens are the demons?
Well, these are all relative terms, aren't they? I think it depends on it's essentially within the Greek traditions, and again, that this is found within the biblical traditions of the Nephilim. So the Nephilim were the giants. You've got Nephil, which is a giant, Nephil, which is fallen, so the wordplay between the fallen or the fallen ones. Now, the terminology Nephilim is coming from Nephilia, which is Orion in the Aramaic. Again, within the Semitic languages, you have the Gibberim, which were translated as the heroes or the giants. The Gibberim is related to the etymology of Gibber or Orion. And this was a mixed lineage between the Watchers, the sons of the Watchers, the Ben Elohim. The Ben Elohim were described as Erin, which was a watcher, which would make them the seraphim, because in the Testament of Amram, Erin is used to describe the watchers or the shining ones, which were the seraphim. And indeed, in the Testament of Amram, he describes them as having the face of a viper, so the visage of a viper. So we know that the Ben Elohim, the sons of the high ones, or the Erin, which are one and the same, were serpentine, and they procreated with humans. And this goes back into the traditions of Orion. And so you've got Yadal Jaza, which is the hand of the giant. The hand of the giant is the hidden hand, which is Orion. But again, you've got this connection with Rigel as well, and the etymology for a man or a human. So in the star system Orion, the human, if you like, the Adamic races were created within Orion, or this is certainly found within the mythological traditions. And this race was corrupted, which was the Nephilim. Now, the Nephilim are really just an unsanctified or an unsanctioned lineage. Essentially, there was a war within heaven. It's known in the Greek as the Titanomachy, which is the battle of the Titans. And this was, again, if you like, it was the division or partition between the Elohim, which can be understood as the Watchers or the Seraphim. The Seraphim originate from Sirius. Now, we know this through the various different wordplays, and I think it's useful here to go into some of the wordplays. So, for example, you have the Ben Sira. The Ben Sira is the son of a boat. As we mentioned earlier, Malak, an angel, is Malak, a sailor. So the Ben Sira is an angel. Now, it's a diptych paranemasia. This is a special type of wordplay. So, for example, the Hebrew word Sira, a boat, is rendered in Arabic as Sira, which is Sirius. So Ben Sira, the son of a boat, can also be understood as Ben Sira, which are the sons of Sirius. Now, the etymology of Sira, which is Sirius, is coming from the Arabic root Sara, which is the spark. Hence, the seraphim are described as the shining ones, Serefa, which is fire. The spark is used to denote the seraphim, and therefore the jinn are said to be born from fire. Fire is used to denote Sirius. So it's an astrological signifier. Now, typically within the occult tradition, the idea of fire is used to communicate this idea that they are spirits, which at one level they are, but remember that they are physical because they've deconstructed the mechanics of reality. Again, they travel in vessels or carriers, which are represented both as wheels and also as shields as well. So, for example, if you wanted to look at the connections between, for example, a harpy, you see that there's a connection between Opelon, which is a shield, Pleon, which is a boat. So the round shield is used to represent a boat within the ancient symbolism, both within the Semitic traditions and also the Greek traditions. And the etymology of Opelon, a shield, relates to Arpue, which is an arpe, but the word arpue means the abductors. And this is important because when in ufology, this idea that the abductors are something which is sort of new, which has kind of contaminated ufology in the last few years. This is not true, it's ancient. Again, in the Latin, this would be the nympholeptos, which is to be stolen by the nymphs. Again, you've got lepros, which is scaly. Lupus, which is a wolf, which is a representation of the dog star. So these are all occult signifiers going back to the dog star. It's going back to the traditions of panspermia. So there is this connection, if you like, between the Ben Sira, yet Sira is creation. Sira is a boat, yet Sira is creation. And again, it's interconnected with Za, which is an angel, or an alien, and Zaria, which is seed. This planting of the seed on the earth is linked into Yetzirah, which is creation. You've got Yetzer, which is a creature, Sira, which is a boat, the Ben Sira. So this is the occult tradition.
Okay.
So it's a very, again, I mean, I'm only piecing together some of the fragments because these fragments have been lost. And again, Homer, and I'm not an expert on Homer, but Homer is dealing with the humanist tradition. And indeed, the etymology of Homer relates to Homer, which is one or the same or analogous. We would say Homo sapiens, so it's the humanist tradition. For example, you would have Ovid, which is related to Ophid, which is a serpent. So that's the seraphic tradition. As we said before, the Pythagorean Euclidean dialectic. So Pythagoras is the Pythagorean tradition. Pythagoras is the speaker of the Python, the speaker of the seraphim. And then you've got Euclid. Now, Euclid in Greek means good glory, but it's a diptych paronomasia. It's actually coming from the Arabic word Euclid, which is to copy or to ape. Now, Euclid wrote his treatise on geometry, and mathematics copies or apes the external world. But when we actually look at this within the Euclidean traditions, the etymology of Euclid, which is to copy or to ape, comes from the etymology of kurd, which is an ape. And so the Euclidean tradition, again, is this humanist tradition. It's of this humanist knowledge. And again, in the Euclidean tradition, there's a reference that the royalty were not connected to this tradition at all. And we did make mention to the fact that there is this connection, if you like, between the royal bloodlines, which are seen to be a grafted species from this reptilian component. So, for example, when you look at the diptych paronomasia of Anax, a prince in the Greek and the Phoenician languages, you've got Anak, which in the Hebrew is a giant. So the princes were represented as giants. And you find this within the stone reliefs as well. Kings are always larger. Now, why are they larger? Because they represent Gibor, or Gibor, which is Orion. Orion interrelates to the traditions of the heroes or the titans. And so they are represented as larger. It's this grafted bloodline. And again, in the Persian, Mal, a leader or a king, would be related to Ma, which is a serpent. In the Greek, Basilios and Basilikos, which is a serpent, a king and a serpent. In the Arabic, the Sarifa, Sarif, which is a noble, and then you've got Seraph, which is a serpent. So it's universal. In English, we'd say kingship, those who are born of a boat. Or highness. Highness is another denotation of the Elohim, which in a literal respect would be the Bene Elohim, the sons of the high ones. So we're finding this symbolism, but it's certainly important because it has obviously, I was going to say, infected our understanding of everything within culture. And it really has, whether it's the ship of state, whether it's the cabinet, again, the cabinet represents a cabin on a boat, whether it's the depiction of the church as a vessel or a ship, or again, worshipping. And I want to draw attention, or the audience's attention, to worship as well, because within the tradition of worshipping, this is because they literally worshipped these vessels. So the English word worship is polyglottal. You find it within the Arabic. Sabar is to praise or to glorify, but is related in the Arabic to Sabaoth, which is the host, rendered in Hebrew as Sabaoth. So they are literally praising or glorifying this vessel or ship, which is an angelic ship or vessel. As we said before, there was this connection between Malach and angel, Mekal, which is a container, but a container is used as an esoteric signifier of a vessel. You would find the similar word plays in English between boat and bottle. So the bottle in a boat is representing this idea. The etymology of bottle is related to a vessel, which is a boat. And this is the cytological tradition, the representation of vessels, which is interconnected to scaphology, which is the representation of ships. And indeed, you have to really have an appreciation of the two. So, for example, if you want to represent a vessel, you can represent it as a basket. A woven basket had this connotation of a woven bloodline, which are interconnected with the wheels or a shield. So you can have a basket. You can have a barrel within the Greek. So the etymology of barrel is related in the Greek to alkas, which is a boat or a ship. Again, the barrel is used to denote something which is heavy. So it would be used to represent specifically a large opening wheel. So these are seed carriers. And again, the basket is used to denote a seed carrier. But importantly, a basket is lifted up. It's lifted up into heaven. And so the signifier of the basket is to lift up. In the Babylonian carvings, you will often see angels carrying these baskets. And it's cryptic. You know, the average man would not understand what that basket signifies, but it signifies to be lifted up into heaven, and it signifies a vessel. So it's polymorphic. In all languages, a vessel can be used to denote a ship or a boat. And so we're finding that relationship. Yep.
Okay. So I will try to make a summary if I understood you correctly.
Yeah.
And if I didn't, then you let me know.
I'll let you know.
So we have, Earth has been invaded somehow.
I perhaps wouldn't use the word invaded.
Okay.
Something occurred in the distant past or the distant future. I'm not going to commit myself on that because we're dealing here with a holographic culture. And this led to what is described in the Greek traditions as the corruption of the anthropos. The corruption of the anthropos was this proto-human. And if you like, the anthropos human also denoted these non-human races. So it was a mark of respect. So when you referred to the anthropos, you wasn't just necessarily referring to the human race, you were referring to any race which was sentient. So the corruption of the anthropos was the grafting together of these different genetic streams, with this reptilian stream and this human stream, and that led to the corruption of the anthropos. Now, what occurred in heaven was that there was a war in heaven. Humanity lost, but there was a covenant or a contract in which there was then a reseeding of the earth, or there was the planting of humanity. Now, my understanding of this is that the human seed originated from the Pleiades. I'm not going to go into that because that's something that I'm working on at the moment. And again, the information that I have on that is very fragmentary, but it's based upon very complex astro-theological symbolism and etymological symbolism. But essentially, you had the seraphim, which came from Sirius. You had the proto-humans, which came from the Pleiades. And then the Adamic man was created as a result of this combat. The Adamic man was created. Now, the Adamic man was created in order, he's different from the proto-human in that the Adamic man is sexually compatible both with the seraphim and the cherubim. And this is why I believe that the Adamic human was created. Superficially, the Adamic man is very similar to the proto-humans, but we are different in terms of that we are sexually viable with both sections of the host, the proto-human and the seraphim. So the Adamic man was created in Orion. The Adamic man is connected to Mars and lived on Mars. And again, the destruction of the earth and the destruction may actually have related to Mars, because there is this etymological connection between Adam, Machadim, which is Mars, Adam, which is red. So again, an Adama, which is earth. So the red earth relates to Mars, which is the Adamic man. The Adamic man was then seeded on the earth. In the Zoroastrian traditions, he was destroyed, and the seed of man was taken to the moon and then replanted on the earth. So there seems to be, if you like, this war in heaven, which occurred in the distant past or in the future, in which sections of the proto-humans were grafted, and an Adamic human was created, which was, if you like, it was a humanoid which was tampered with, probably combined with humanoids on the earth. and they were genetically viable with both the seraphim and the cherubim. So again, the tradition is very, shall we say, complex. It's encoded within Homer, but again, it's a codological tradition. It's a codified tradition.
Is this war in heaven, is that part of the reason for the Orion Wars?
This is it. Well, this is interesting. You see, I don't want to sound condescending, but I think within the alternative media, if you like, it's been usurped. So there are a lot of things which are put out within the alternative media is problematic, in the same way it's problematic within academia. So the disciplorati are trying to control the discourse. They're trying to steer the discourse. And so, for example, a lot of what you hear about the Sumerian texts and the translations of the cuneiforms and the translation of the hieroglyphs is problematic. It's problematic from my viewpoint, having spent 15 years studying etymology. A lot of what I hear in the alternative media doesn't make sense in terms of what I've been looking at in terms of trying to decode the hieroglyphs, trying to understand the Semitic languages. But also within academia, none of this makes sense as well. But what we're dealing with is a very clever deception. So, for example, with the hieroglyphs, you'll have examples where the hieroglyphs they don't make sense, but they're an encoding, a sophisticated encoding. So hieroglyphs will it'll distort the meaning, but it'll give you a clue to the meaning. So we're dealing here with the priesthood. The priesthood are very sophisticated in their word games. So the hieroglyphs are problematic. And we're finding this also within the alternative media. And this is why I always recommend that basically you always have to look where things come from. I mean, you have now this whole tradition of Zecharia Sitchin and this kind of blossoming of all these ideas, which has grown out of that. And I would say that this has been to steer academia away. And I think that there is a psychological operation to discredit true academic discovery within this field. I mean, I don't want to sound too controversial with the viewers, but I also think that the traditions like flat Earth, what they use is very well. They use very complicated pseudo-scientific arguments which appeal to people who are naturally skeptical. And again, this is part of the dialectic, because you have, if you like, you have two ways of organizing information. You have the realists who are absolutists. Okay, so they deal with facts, and it is very much a top-down system of dealing with facts. So you have what is known and understood, and then you make deductions from what is known and understood. And that is a good system. That is, if you like, that's, I'm trying to think, that's left brain thinking. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then you have the opposite, which are the skeptics. They're the idealists. So the idealists, and this is part of the dialectic, are always skeptical. They don't trust anything that they're told, whether it's to do with the government. They don't even trust physical realities. Is this real? How do we know it's real? And again, this is a different type of system, way of organizing information. So this is from the bottom, and it actually goes up. So it's more of an emergent system. So they will look at information and they will work the information out and won't take anything for granted. And again, this is a good, no single way is the best way of organizing information. The best way is to actually synthesize the two between the left and the right hemisphere, and to organize information that way. If you're not careful, if the idealist, both the idealist and the realist, the idealist who's skeptical and the realist who is absolutist, you can both get to an intellectual dead end. So it's a matter of synthesis, the synthesis of the left and the right hemisphere. And so the, if you like, the realist and the idealist are always at loggerheads, because they never can agree. Now, the reason why they never can agree is because we're dealing here with a structural problem. It's a fundamental problem, and it's how the human mind works. But I argue that it's not only just biological, but the dialectic has been, shall we say, encouraged. This way of thinking has been encouraged. And it's been encouraged because the Elohim are very interested in emergent systems. And emergent systems tie into systems of evolution. And in my opinion, what they're interested in doing is seeding many worlds. And they're not just interested in super advanced technologies, which of course they are, but they're also interested at every level B. And so they are seeding and have seeded many different worlds, and they are using emergent systems or systems of evolution in order to remain at the top of the pecking order. Now, this is because, in my opinion, they're a predaceous species, and they know that there are other predaceous species. Now, actually, within nature in general, I think that within evolution, and that's a very problematic term, but species generally move towards equilibrium. They're neither very spiritual and they are neither very predaceous. They move towards what you would describe as an equilibrium. But there are always extremes, both from the very spiritual and also the very predaceous as well. So that's gives you an idea of why they are interested in planting seed on different planets, and how this interconnects with the Ben Sira, the son of the boat, Arabic Zaria, which is seed, which would relate to Zar, an angel or an alien. So there's some, if you like, philosophical ideas and how this interconnects.
Mm-hmm. So how do the fallen angels fit in here?
Okay. Again, it's a very good question. It is a matter of perspective. So for example, the seraphim are described both as angels and as a messenger, and also they're described as demonic. Again,
who describes them as demonic?
Well, the church would describe them as demonic. It's to do with the war in heaven. So when the Elohim fought and humanity got embroiled in this conflict, suddenly the angels were basically, it became sectarian. Yeah, the good guys are the seraphim, the bad guys are demonic. And so this is how it actually arose. Just we're talking about sectarian ideology. So it's not that they're a completely different species. But again, you're seeing what they are basically an unsanctioned lineage. So they have taken the reins and they are trying to control. But it's a much more complicated picture than this, because some of the seraphim believe that humans should be given the power to actually control and rule themselves, whereas other seraphim believes that the humanity are below them and that they should be ruled through the monarchical bloodlines, which are these arbitrators, which again, from the seraphim's perspective, would be considered to be unclean, but would be considered to be a viable alternative, a better alternative. So they have these human mediators. So this is basically the tradition, but you find the etymology encoded within language. So, for example, within the parliamentary system, you have this bi-parliamentary system, the upper and the lower house. The lower house is represented by the commons. Again, the etymology of commons comes from the Latin word meaning hairy. And then you've got the upper house, which would represent the Elohim, which are the high ones. Now, this is particularly encoded within the Hebrew etymology, because the etymology of Satan is related to Sinton, which is two. But there's this connection between Shilton, which is government. Now, the word Shilton, government, is related to Satan or Shaitan. So the word Shaitan originally was used to denote a political party. So again, it was a political opposition. The daemons were a political opposition. So Shaitan, you've got, which is an adversary, an opponent, related to Shilton, which is government, which is related to... I'm trying to remember now, Sultan, which is the royal bloodline. Sultan is related to Tan or Tanim, which is a dragon. So again, the lineage of the dragon. As we said, there's this connection in the Greek between Archon, an angel or ruler, and Drakon. In the Arabic, it would be Akim, which is a king, related to Akan, which is a seraph in the old Babylonian dialect. But again, in the Arabic also Sarif, which is a lord, and Seraph, which is a serpent. So So yeah, that's essentially, if you like, this monarchical lineage. And this lineage is typically represented as grafted or stitched. And this is very important when you're looking at the symbolism, because a genealogical tree is referring to a grafted lineage. And again, this idea in English of scion, which is one who has come from a noble family, but the etymology of scion also relates to grafting. So this is a grafted lineage. So grafting and trees connects to what you would describe also as the neophyte. In the Greek, you've got neophytus, the newly planted. Phuton, which is a plant, is related to phot, which is light, which again are the Axari, a brother of light. The Axari is rendered in the Latin as the Illuminati. Now, the Illuminati, as I said, are interconnected to the Axari, a brother of light, or the Axari, which is in the Aramaic is a brother of an angel or an alien. Zar is related to Sira, which is a boat. Sira is Sirius, so the brothers of light are the brothers of Sirius. But the orders of the Illuminati are very sophisticated in which they actually represent their symbolism. They're kind of working on duplex symbolism, and this is reverse symbolism, and it's used to create ambiguity within the symbol, to lock the symbol, so there is this ambiguity. And we find within the Illuminati that they themselves represent their order within threes, again 33 degrees of Freemasonry. So I refer to the Illuminati as the tripartite Illuminati, the three orders of the Illuminati, which is, first of all, you've got the human order of the Illuminati. So you have Esh in Hebrew, which is man. Sorry, Esh, which is fire, Ish, which is man. Then you've got the non-human order of the Illuminati, Serapha, which is fire, Seraph, which is a serpent. And then you've got the planted or the grafted lineage, the neophytes. So you've got Phot, which is light, Neophytus, which are the newly planted. So they are the three orders of the Illuminati: human, non-human, grafted. And you have an antagonism between them. And this antagonism can be loosely summarized as the seraphim cherubim dialectic. It's this dialectic between the humanist and non-human tradition. In other words, non-human angels, which are the seraphim, humanist tradition, which relates to the cherubim or the proto-human angels. As we referred to earlier, this was the Pythagorean Euclidean dialectic. Puthosagoras, the speaker of the serpent; Euclid, to copy our ape; Kurd, which is an ape. So that's essentially how that breaks down. And they are closely connected to the source occults, which are the veneration of these angelic boats. And when you look at the worship of these boats, when you go into the mystery schools, what you would typically have is that the votive dish, which was used as a receptacle to collect the sacrifice, they typically add a circle, and in the middle there was often what you have is either a bobble or a triangle or a tooth, and this is used hieroglyphically to denote Sirius. So the votive dish hieroglyphically writes Sirius, but this is used to represent the axle and the wheel. The axle and the wheel are the opening wheels, which are these flying saucers, hence the connection between Saba, which is to praise or to glorify, Sabaoth, which is the host. So this Sirius represents a ship. Sirius is Sira in Hebrew, which is a boat, which can be represented as a receptacle. And this is because the angels were connected to blood sacrifice, because the seraphim actually drink blood. And so this is, in English, we'd say drink and drake, but the same wordplay is also found within the Arabic as well. Seraph, and it escapes me, but there is the same wordplay also in the Arabic. But this is all polyglottal. It's found within many different languages. So if you like, the Holocaustan, the Holocaust, which is the burnt offering, interconnects to the symbology of Sirius, the symbology of the shining ones and Sirius. And this is because the wheels were connected to animal mutilation, and the ancients were copying this. They were mirroring this within their symbology. So
yeah, up to today.
Up to today, yes, it's no different. But it's very interesting that the church have adopted blood sacrifice, or the symbolism of blood sacrifice, which interconnects to boats and vessels. So again, it's a very occult tradition. Again, when we look at the word occult, occult means to hide or to conceal. And to hide or to conceal, well, what is to hide or to conceal? It's a tradition of the jinn. Jinn, Arabic, jana, to hide or to conceal. And again, you're finding this within the traditions of Athena as well. You have statues of Athena. And what's interesting is that the Greek symbolism often works on the Arabic, and it's always removed. So, for example, if you go into the in Roman Church, you'll have symbols which play into the Greek, and then if you are studying, let's say, the Quranic tradition, then you need to understand Arabic, but not only Arabic, but Greek as well. And this is never taught about within the Islamic tradition. Okay, the Hermetical side of the Quran, that the Quran is actually quoting areas of the Hermetica, and that is another tradition. So it's very interesting. But the occult tradition is the hidden tradition, jana, which is to hide or to conceal, which is the jinn. Again, we could say within fairy lore as well, in English, the sealy court comes from the etymology of seal, which is to hide or to conceal, in English, conceal. So one and the same thing. So the traditions of the Watchers. So, for example, the hidden tradition, going back to the statue of Athena. Athena is shown, and she's carrying a shield, and behind the shield is a serpent. Now, remember, the shield is used to represent a flying saucer, and this is because of the Greek connection in Greek between pleon, a boat, opelon, a shield, erpeton, a reptile. Again, the reptile is connected to signifiers of light as well, so to kindle a flame, and apui, which is an abductor. But the shield also in the Aramaic, the same word plays work out in the Aramaic. So, for example, she's got a shield. In Aramaic, junna is a shield because it's coming from the etymology of to hide or to conceal. So it's something which is concealed. Is related to jen, which is a serpent or a worm, which is jinn, which is the jinn, which essentially are the serpentagene, of the offspring of a dragon, which are the seraphim. The Latin word serpentagena or the anguagena, one and the same. So this is what we're dealing with, yeah.
Sorry.
Angels which are connected to these vessels. I'd like to mention also the symbology of the shield, and I think that's very interesting in terms of that the shield is also depicted as a missile, and so the host are seen to be a military contingent. So you see that there's a connection between a missile and emissary and a missionary. So a missionary of God, one who is inspired, is one who's been inspired through an emissary, which is an angel. But the emissaries come from missiles. And these missiles, well, what are the missiles? Well, when you look at the Greek traditions of missiles and what they were, well, what they would do, the Greeks, they would use these shields, and they would typically fill them of hot sand and also excrement as well often. And they would heat it up really hot, and they would seal it. They'd put it into a catapult, and they would use this hot oil and they would, fire them, and they would be like cannonballs. They would like break down masonry. They would sink ships. And so the missiles were flying shields, which are these flying saucers, which connects to the angelic tradition. And so a missionary of God is one who is connected to an emissary and a missile. And so symbols then of the shield, with angels carrying shields, spears, arrows, these are all connected to this idea of a type of missile, which is essentially going back to the idea of an angelic carrier, an angelic vehicle, a vessel, closely interrelated with ship symbolism. But the ship and the shield are very prominent symbols. Often you'll find angels holding shields like that, okay? And again, within Roman sculpture also, you'll find like a proconsul, and and around him will be this circle, which is a shield, meaning he is born from a boat, lordship. He is from an angelic lineage. And so the symbology is very, very important to understand. This is why boats are found also on buildings, on the facade of buildings, interconnected to commerce, interconnected to law as well. So you have admiralty law. Again, this distinction between human law and non-human laws, which are connected to heaven and earth. This mirror image of heaven and earth is occurring all the time. And so you have the mooring of heaven and earth. So the state, stratos, which is an army, which is used in the Greek to refer to the angelic host, connects to the state, and it connects to the statutes of law. And this is why the court is represented as a boat. The dock of law is a boat, and the boat is a representation of an angelic vessel, which we said was the classical tradition, classis and naval fleet, which is classified because it's restricted. We're not supposed to be talking about it. We're not supposed to know about it. It's hidden. The scatological tradition doesn't appear anywhere. You know, I wasn't told about that an angel is a sailor when I went to Sunday school when I was a kid. Malak an angel, Malak a sailor. No one told me that. Everyone told me that an angel was from the Greek etymology of angelos, which is a messenger. Now, of course, it is connected to angelos, but it's also connected to the Greek etymology of a vessel, and a vessel is used to denote a ship, as found in the Semitic languages also. Yep.
So, so those people.
I need to breathe, don't I?
Teacher.
Yep.
So those people who say they are channeling, let's say, Archangel Michael or Gabriel or whatever.
Michael relates.
What?
Okay. No, it's a very good question. Michael is related etymology to Mekal, which is a container. A container is used to use a vessel. So Michael he's the commander of the host, and the host is represented by this vessel, which is an angelic vessel. Again, with the seraphim, Sephira, which is a sphere, Sophina, which is a ship, a round ship, Ark, which is a round vessel, an ark or an archon. So these are all signifiers. But what's happening with the channeling? Well, again, you have in the traditions of the Karin. Now, the etymology of Karin is a type of jinn. It's traditionally translated as a companion. But again, companion is used to denote a company of sailors. But Karin is related to Erin, which is a watcher or a shining one. Kayin, which is an entity. But again, the Karin are telepathic, hence the connection in Arabic between Kari, which is telepathic. So again, you would find this connection also with the etymology of Quran as well, which is coming from the Karin and Kari. I know traditionally the Quran is said to be derived from Gabriel, but Gabriel, Gabor, which in the Arabic is used to refer to a mighty man, is related to the Jibrim. Gabor is also used to denote Orion. So again, that there's this astro-theological symbolism which is occurring. But essentially the jinn are telepathic, and they can get into your head, they can influence what you think, and they inspire as well. Inspiration coming from the etymology of spiritus, which is a spirit, which again is the jinn, which are the Ruach Elohim. The Ruach Elohim are said to be connected to a missile and an emissary, which relates to missionary. So again, these are closely connected to the spirit or inspiration, which is telepathic communication. So yes, there are people in contact, telepathic contact with both the angels and the jinn. And I think it's useful here to try and clarify what we mean by an angel and a jinn. And I think this is a fascinating subject. And again, there's no real consensus, but I will offer my perspective in terms of studying the etymology. So for example, jinn is related to the Old Semitic noun jen, which is a serpent or worm. The jinn are said to be born from fire, which is a signifier of the Ben Sira. Sira is used to denote a boat or Sirius. So the jinn are closely interconnected with the seraphim, Sopheth, a watcher, Serapha, which is fire. So the jinn and the seraphim are one and the same thing. Now, Muslim scholars and Arabic scholars will say that the angels and the jinn are not the same thing. But you can really denote that the jinn are traditionally interconnected with fallen angels. They're traditionally represented as fallen angels. But the jinn and the seraphim, when you begin to break down the symbology would denote that they are one and the same species.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so most people have this idea that angels are protecting them everywhere they go, and
maybe some angels do. I'm not trying to dismiss this, but I think the thing is that, as we said before, that the debate about what the angels are have been steered by the priesthood. They understand what the symbols mean. Now, the symbols are predominantly linguistic, so there is this connection between there's a connection between pictures and languages. And so you have picture theory and the idea that a thought can be, that linguistic thought is related to imagery and pictures. This is very much understood by the priesthood, and it was both intuitively understood, but also understood at an academic level also. So the imagery is used to play on the subconscious mind, and it's also used as a type of manipulation as well. So maybe for some people, angels are protectors, but this idea that the angels, what I want to try and impress upon the readers that, or upon your audience, is that within the scatological tradition anyway, the angels inform the ufological tradition. So this idea that a flying saucer, remember the flying saucer originally was the votive dish in which they worshipped a ship, which is a vessel, these entities. And so it informed the ufological tradition. The ufological tradition is not new. It goes back to this tradition, this classified tradition, which denotes angels, this naval tradition. So the representation of the angel is often symbolic. This idea that the angels have wings is used to denote one who is derived from heaven. I know certainly within the anecdotal records that some people say that that there are reptilian angels with wings, or demons have wings. Again, that's within the anecdotal records. That may be true, but also we are dealing here with symbolism as well. And so we sometimes have to balance up what is said within the anecdotal record with what is found within the symbolism. And again, also in terms of the anecdotal record, it's very difficult to we know for sure that people are communicating with these entities. We also know that people are being taken by these entities, and we also know that it's connected to inspiration. Some of these people who are in contact with these beings, we can recognize intuitively that they have important things to say. This was understood within the prophetic tradition, that certain people were selected by the Elohim, that they were in communication with them, and they had things, important things to say. Sometimes this may have been as a type of manipulation, but sometimes this may have also been for the betterment of humanity. So again, we're weighing up elements within this tradition. So yeah, so that's it's quite a complicated answer, but I you know, it's complex. It's complex because of the distortion within the information, the disinformation. So there's always an attempt to subvert this information. And as I said before, it's found within the alternative media, and it's found within academia as well. So it's like, you know, it's like, why aren't boats mentioned? Why, in terms of symbology? You know, within my book, Holographic Culture, to understand the angel, you have to understand the symbology of the angel and the vessel, because they come together. They're one and the same, and they're synonymous. And that was understood within the ancient world. But yeah, if you study mythology or you study religion, you will never, or hardly ever, hear of boats in terms of the angelic tradition. I mean, Hermes himself, he wore a hat which is round and circular like a flying saucer with wings. Now, within the Greek symbology, that was a shield. A shield was adorned on the side of a boat, but there's an etymological connection between pleon, a boat, oplon, a shield, and it was used to denote knowledge. But again, in the Greek, there is this, these vehicles are controlled through the mind, so there's this connection between nous, the mind, pneuma, the spirit, nous, which is a boat. So these were teleological vessels which were controlled through the mind, and they understood this. And this is why the Ophanim wheels are often described as the living creatures, because their AI systems on these vessels were sentient, and they were wired up to the mind of the deity. And that's a very profound idea. And that idea, a few years ago, we would have not even been in a position where we could deconstruct that idea, but yet it's encoded within the ancient Greek. And I think that that in itself is a fascinating idea.
So, so all these players, they have been here for a long time.
Thousands of years, yes.
And they are still here.
They're still here. They're a part of our culture. They instituted culture, stratos, which is an army or host. They instituted our laws.
Religion, I would assume.
Religion, well, religare is to more a vessel, where you get the root for religion. So religion is this mirrored symmetry between heaven and earth, which is represented as the host, or these naval tradition, the angels, Malach an angel, Malach a sailor. So yeah, they've been here for thousands of years. They've encoded themselves within human language, which I describe as the artifact, which is found through parallel thought formations or polyglottal symbolism, found in all languages. So there is this universal code found within human languages, which points to or alludes to something which is external, and this external entity has directed human development. And again, I think that they're interested in emergent systems. So if you like, they set up the hardware, which is the state, the laws, and then they let us get on with it ourselves. They may sometimes encourage financial difficulties, or and encourage these emergent systems to occur through conflict, which leads to it leads to evolutionary cycles, which have implications technologically, but also from the perspective of evolution as well. But again, I don't really like the word evolution. I think that's a very problematic word, and the reason why I think it's problematic is we don't evolve. All animals are the perfect expression at that given moment for their environment. So why they're not evolving, and everything is controlled or directed by sunlight. So for example, when we end up going to different stars, right, and living on different planets, you'll suddenly find that and let's say you get two groups of humanities, one goes to one star system and another goes to another star system. Well, one group of humans will maybe grow to be 7 feet tall and have a slightly bluish tinge to their skin, and another group of humans will be small and they'll be very dark. So again, on what directs that? Well, light, which is intelligence, which is the intelligent field, and understanding light is understanding the waveform. And again, when we're dealing with a holographic culture, they are beyond time and space. They've deconstructed the mechanics of reality. But not only this, and I think that this in itself is so profound, that they've also they've deconstructed all of the worlds. They've deconstructed the spirit realm as well. This is why when people have near-death experiences, sometimes they see these entities which are non-human, because they have deconstructed this reality. They can go into the spirit realm and they can understand the spirit realm. And when I talk about the spirit realm, what I'm really talking about is the realm of ideas. Now, this in Platonic thinking was the realm of universal forms. Universal forms, the spiritual realm or the imaginal realm, is manifested physically in the physical realm as a particle. It's the distinction between the waveform and its materialization as the particle. Now, human beings, we are on the pinnacle of becoming a holographic culture. We are on the pinnacle of deconstructing the waveform. Who knows? Maybe we've deconstructed it already. If we have, we probably won't find out about it for the next 300 years, because this is what everything is. Everything is classified. But with the internet, the genie is out of the bottle. You know, it's no longer possible to dismiss what people's accounts about these entities. The genie is out of the bottle. So, and we're really living at the year dot. You know, this is a wonderful opportunity for humanity in terms of interconnecting, in terms of learning, and again, even in terms of things like religious doctrine and dogmatism. You know, it's so for me. I'm sure some people might find my viewpoint, if you come from a religious background, as problematic. You might find it hurtful, or it may challenge your religious perspective. But again, this is a wonderful opportunity where you can connect up with a different viewpoint, and you can deconstruct that for yourself. And you may walk away from my viewpoint and you may say, well, I still want to continue down this, down this belief structure, this belief system. And that in itself is fine. But I think what's interesting is that we are at a turning point, and hopefully we can get our act together. Hopefully humanity can begin to move towards a very positive future. And I'm very optimistic. I always say I'm quietly optimistic, but I am optimistic. I think we are seeing changes, and the changes are connected to sunlight. Everything is connected to sunlight, and so yeah. And I think what we're going to see is that when we link up in terms of like with technology, we're going to see that people are going to start resonating in terms of that. They're going to start being more closer. So linking up with the internet and linking up with different minds, I think, gives the human species a facility for telepathy. I'm not saying that we didn't have it before. We did, obviously, when we in the past, when we were communicating with the spirits and you had the shamanic tradition, they were very much connected to nature. But I'm saying possibly we could maybe find that spirituality, which we've lost to a degree, and where we've become alienated from nature. Perhaps we could find this through the internet, through connecting up. Perhaps that will take us back to nature, take us back to being connected.
So these players that are all here,
yeah,
is it fair to say that they somehow see Earth as their personal enterprise?
Yes, they've got a vested interest in the Earth, and I think that they see us as their property. But this is a contentious issue, and it's being fought about amongst the angels, because not all the angels agree with that. Some of the angels think that men should be given the opportunity to rule themselves. I mean, Plato wrote his Republic, but Zeno took it further. Now, the word Zeno is coming from Xenos, which is an alien, but the terminology alien was used to refer to an angel. It's kind of interchangeable. Now, he wrote his Republic, and he talked about a meristocracy where common men could become leaders, prime ministers, heads of states, essentially. And this created what I describe as the Heloist split, the split with the Elohim. So the word in the Arabic, in the Greek, Citium, which is the location where he originated from, is connected in the Semitic languages to Kittim, which were the idolaters. And again, so it was this split, and it was the split because they were arguing that humanity could have sovereignty over themselves, that they could represent humanity. And the Republic and the idea of the Republic has been behind pretty much all of the wars on the planet. And this is an occult history. So it's a history which is hidden, but it's behind the secret society network. It's behind the Masons. And again, the Masons are the builders, and the builders refer to the angels, because the etymology of an angel, again, is connected to Amar, which is to speak or to command, is related to Amar Bane, which is a type of builder. And again, we'd say a construct, an intellectual construct, which is a construction, which is to build. So again, we're dealing here with social engineers, but the builders also refer to the demiurge, demiurgos, the public craftsman. Now, the public craftsman was a genetic engineer. It's the Greek word for a genetic engineer. Genetically engineered humanity, but they also socially engineered humanity. And they set up the hardware, which is the state, and then they let the computer program run itself. Now, I know some people will say that the Elohim don't intervene. I don't agree with that. I think that they do intervene, but they are interested in these emergent systems, and so they do let the program play out by itself. But sometimes they do intervene. And this is found throughout history and throughout biblical symbolism. God is always intervening. He's always hitting somebody with a plague. And again, that's a very, very interesting idea. I know in medieval times that lights were often associated with the plague. Strange lights in the skies were often seen as being an omen. Now, with the plague, what it does is that it conveniently changes it creates a power shift. So suddenly, if someone's dominant, if suddenly a large section of the population dies, it creates a vacuum of power. And again, it facilitates these emergent systems. And I think that these entities are predominantly interested in these emergent systems. And so I do think that they do intervene. And I think that they're trying to facilitate and encourage these emergent systems.
Are they not ashamed of themselves? I mean, if I have an enterprise, I want to be proud of that. Look at this shithole.
Well, I don't know. It's like, if you look at the human species, are we proud of the human species? well, I'd say yes and no. We're horrified by the human species and what the human species can do, but we also can do beautiful things as well. And so it's the same with the seraphim, you know, and these are very advanced beings, but they're also subject to mind control. You remember, they're like human beings. We have set up our systems, and our systems mirror their systems. Now, the human mind is very susceptible to mind control, and it's susceptible to mind control through language, which is the artifact, through subliminal symbolism. I believe these entities, the talkers themselves, are susceptible to this type of control. So are they themselves a victim of the similar type of control? Are they good? Are they bad? I think, yes, they're good and they're bad. They're angelic and they're demonic. But I also think it's the same with the anthropos and humanity as well. Yes, we are angelic, and yes, we are demonic, and yes, we're sometimes in between. So I don't want to stereotype the seraphim and say that they're all bad or they're all good. I'm saying it's far more complex. You know, how do we define what is good and bad? Elements of them have
if you make somebody suffer, that's bad.
Yeah, that is bad.
Story.
And the seraphim are guilty of that in the same way that humanity is guilty of that. But I also believe that sections of the seraphim are also trying to alleviate human suffering in the same way that sections of humanity are also trying to alleviate suffering. So I think
but they left this this construct, this of government, monarchy. There we have the archons, we have it in archangel, we have it in archbishop, blah 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 blah. So they left this construct of rulership, government, and what have you, including religion. And mind controlling us from the get-go, the minute we are born. So I think they really have some responsibility for the shithole that this has turned into.
Well, I think we have a responsibility to ourselves, and I think also, I think we have to start taking responsibility for ourselves. As I said in the introduction, I think that there's a genetic tendency for the species of the seraphim to be predacious, but I'm not going to stereotype them all and say that they're all predacious. And again, I think that the seraphim themselves, they're commanded under a host. The fallen angels are basically mutineers. They can be understood as mutineering angels. Again, those mutineers, some of them are going to be for humanity, some are going to be against humanity, some are just going to be indifferent. But we're dealing here with a hierarchical structure. And where there's hierarchical structures in which you've got a singular point of power, then there can be corruption of that power. And I think that, again, this is one of the problems in terms of these hierarchies. And it's one of the problems which has been a feature of conflict with humanity, these governmental structures which are very singular in their power structures and their power bases. But they do reflect this seraphic host and their way of ordering their angels and their system of governance. So...
yeah, I'm probably not that forgiving. I'm probably not that forgiving as you are, because if you can't do a good job, don't do it at all.
Well, I mean, humans were fighting against the seraphim for a long time, and then we were replanted on the earth. We are obviously different. The mammal does think differently. And I think that in itself, this is a very interesting philosophical question. If our language had not been interfered with and intercepted by the artifact, which is used to control how we think through subliminal symbolism, how would we have developed our own languages? I think that our language systems would be very different. And again, I think it connects into how we think as mammals, because again, we're very different. And again, this is represented within the dialectic, the seraphim cherubim dialectics, the dialectic between the conscious and the subconscious mind, or the dialectic between the humanist tradition and the non-human tradition, and the different ways of organizing information that we touched upon, this idea of the dialectic and this discourse. So I understand what you're saying. I think when I started studying this, I was very angry at the seraphim, and I was in the same way as what you are. But I'm beginning to be, forgiving might be a very strong word, but I'm beginning to understand that maybe they themselves are a victim of their own system and their own systems of, particularly mind control. I think that they themselves could be a victim of mind control.
Maybe
And
they themselves are enslaved and do not know any
yeah,
better.
yeah, I think this is what it is, that they have this system, and they themselves are a victim of the system. So, but again, it's an interesting philosophical argument. You know, there must be other beings within the universe in that which have totally different systems of government. And again, would those systems of government be more compatible with how we think as mammals? I think that in itself is an interesting idea to explore. So yeah, I think there is a tendency when people hear of this information to look at it as in terms of the humans are the good guys and the seraphim are the bad guys. I'm not so sure. I see all the trustees on the earth, and I just think, well, we are a mirror image of them. They're at conflict with themselves, and we are at conflict of themselves. But I do think that there is a responsibility, both a personal responsibility, but they themselves also have a responsibility as well to be ethical.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important point.
So in other words, we have never been really
Free.
sovereign.
Don't think so.
And yeah.
I think we're getting. I think we're getting there, though. I think it's been a slow process. Again,
but
I think.
Is that if we are really getting there, is that not working against their interests?
Well, whose interest? Because you're dealing with many different factions. Think, we talk about humanity, and it's like, well, who are you talking about? The Americans, Russians, Chinese. They all have a different take on everything. So, which faction? And so,
Well, I mean the Elohim, the seraphim.
Yeah.
If we really get our act together, let's say.
If we really get our act together, this is, I think, I think probably what would happen is that we obviously need to become a holographic culture in order to deconstruct the mechanics of waveform. Then probably what we would do is disappear and try and hide from the seraphim, because the seraphim have a high order of technology, and I think that we would try and disappear in the vastness of space and in the vastness of time, and so we'd send out humans to lots of different time continuums, lots of different star systems, and disappear. I don't think we can fight the seraphim. I think their system of using emergent systems is very powerful in terms of developing weapons. And I think, again, when you look at what's happened in our solar system, it seems like that they perhaps do have technologies where they can destroy solar systems or destroy planets. So we're not going to be able to fight them. And would we really want to use that type of power against a foe anyway? Maybe we just have to accept that we can all exist in the same universe. We just have to exist at a different vibration. Pythagoras talked about the Pythagorean monochord. The monochord is the fastest string vibrates at the quickest level. The slowest level is physical reality. But in between are different dimensions. And these different dimensions are different spaces within the known universe. So I think we could quite easily disappear. But again, when you're looking at the humanist host, this has already occurred. Presumably this has occurred in our future or in our past, and this is what we're dealing with. This is why humans appear as well as the seraphim, and the factions of them are working together, and they're in a covenant of worlds, which is represented by Orion within Masonic symbolism, and factions are working against them. And I think that factions of them are probably hidden as well, that they appear, they disappear into a different reality, into a different time zone. So I think perhaps maybe the seraphim are more interested in controlling what they've got here and now. So yeah, but
I looked at the word Rapha today because I was thinking about Raphael, and Rapha is he heals.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, to heal.
and then we have Raf,
Yeah.
terror. So
Yes.
how in the world do we get from healing to terror?
Okay. Well, remember that Rafa to heal is actually coming from the etymology Rafa, which is to stitch. To stitch is used to denote a stitched bloodline, which is a grafted bloodline. The terminology stitched, woven, grafted are used as similes or metaphors to describe this lineage, which is a demigod image, a lineage which is described as human angelic. In the Greek, it would be the hemithioi, which is a half-god, a pun on hemithios, which is a worm. So again, it's this seraphic lineage. So the reframe, Rapha, which is to stitch, remember, Rapha can also denote a ghost and was also used in a figurative sense to denote the giants. The giants were represented as the spirits, and sometimes the watchers were often represented as the spirits. So the connection between seraph, which is a serpent, shofar, which is a watcher, shofar, which is a watcher in the Egyptian Arabic, shofar, which is an horn. Again, the blowing of the horn is a musical note, which is connected to the Pythagorean monochord. Certain notes open up certain dimensions, which are related to the materialization of the Ruach Elohim. So the Ruach Elohim are the high spirits, but they are manifested physically as the Elokeh, a high creature. So the reframe are this grafted, stitched bloodline, which was said to have healed the world. But remember, the Nephilim were destroyed. But again, when we're dealing with this grafted or stitched bloodline, when we're dealing with the Nephilim, we're really dealing with an unsanctioned lineage. So this was a lineage which originated from the Watchers, who mutineered from the host and had relations with mortal women and set up their own systems of governance in which they had no right to do, according to the Elohim who were in charge, Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of the host. Again, if you want to look at the etymology of Yahweh, this is very interesting as well, because according to Bullinger's in his commentary, he renders Yahweh as Eya, and Eya is coming from Eya, which is I am. Eya She'eya, I am that I am, which is the name of Yahweh. Now, Eya is a wordplay on Aya, which is to be. So he's an entity, entitas to be. He's an entity. He's literally saying I'm an entity. But Aya is a wordplay on Aya, which is a serpent, and Ayal, which is a goblin. So Yahweh was represented as a Malach Elohim, a high angel. And indeed, in Genesis, when he reveals himself as a burning bush, Serapha fire, which represents the seraphim, it's denotational that he is the Lord of the seraphic host. Sabernam is Sabaoth host, Sefer, which is a viper, Sefer, which is Teva, which is an ark. So Lord of the seraphic host. But again, another word for Yahweh is El Shaddai. Now, Shaddai is coming from the Semitic etymology, shed, a goblin, ghost, ghoul, or jinn. So again, same etymologies. They, if you like, they interface. And again, this is another, if you like, it crosses over. And again, it demonstrates that the jinn, the Ruach Elohim, the high spirits were, if you like, representational both of the jinn and also of the seraphim. Jinn, a serpent or worm, seraphim, which were depicted as Sopheth, a watcher, who were derived from Sirius.
Do you have heard of Dr. Shmuel Asher?
Nope.
He is a Torah scholar, and
okay.
it's like a family tradition. They have been Torah scholars for many, many years. I had him as a guest as well, and he specifically says that Aher, Esher Aher, is a different entity than Jehovah or Yahweh, that they are not one and the same.
Yes. Again, I think this goes into the connections that there were 8 letters which were used to denote the double name of God. I would argue, again, I'm aware of the symbolism, but because it's so difficult to deconstruct, I would suggest that the 2 representations of the name of God probably, when broken down, is connecting to the humanist and seraphic tradition. So again, it's this demarcation within the priesthood, this partition within the priesthood between elements which symbolize the serpent and then the humanist tradition. I'm aware of the traditions, but this is a very occult tradition, and the symbolism is very complex.
So we inherited this idea of divine right to rule from.
Yes. Remember, rite is a ritual as well. So
Yeah.
a rite is a ritual.
Yeah.
Coming from the etymology of ritu, which is red, which is blood. So blood rituals, the divine right to rule. Yeah.
But it didn't get any better with
But
so-called
remember also,
democracies.
no, it didn't, no. But remember also that the word divine is coming from the etymology of vine. Well, why a vine? Because a vine grafts itself to a tree, so it's a symbol of that which is grafted. And again, it would be represented by a genealogical tree. Yeah, the divine right to rule. And again, democracy.
Demons
Demos.
crazy.
Well, yeah, demos people and daemon. But again, this is found within the symbolism. This would be the Ben Elohim, the sons of the gods, and their procreation with humanity. So yeah, so you'd find I'm trying to remember now the Arabic etymology, Allah and Ali, which had been national, and jinn and jinnis. I'm trying to remember, but the word plays are the same within the various different languages. This connection between the daemons and humanity. But as I said, the daemons were represented as the anthropos. It was a deferential. It was deferential to the daemons, saying, you know, it was basically acknowledging that they were sentient and that they was intelligent, that they were human-like, humanoid. Not in a literal sense that they were human, but the elements of the daemonic tradition. Obviously, the cherubim are depicted as human because they are human. So, yeah.
Yeah. So many people wake up to the fact that all their governments are a joke.
Yeah, we're getting to that point now. Yeah.
What?
We're getting to that point where people are distrustful of governments. I think it's very interesting because, you know, when I was a kid growing up, everyone, they basically took for granted what the government was saying. So, for example, you know, in England, you'd either be a conservative or a Labour, you'd be socialist or you'd be a conservative. And people accepted that paradigm. But now nobody trusts the government. And in a sense, we've got the internet, and the internet has deconstructed the government, and the internet has shown that what we're being told through the governments is often a lie. And not only that, but we're finding that the lies are endemic. They're found within science, they're found within politics, they're found within academia, they're found within the alternative media. And again, this is a problem because you've got such a saturation of information. There's information overload. And so it's basically developing the skills of being able to deconstruct this information. And again, my book, Holographic Culture, looks at Illuminatics. Illuminatics is coming from the etymology semiotics, which is to deconstruct signs. So Illuminatics is deconstructing the signs of the Illuminati, which interconnects with scaphology, the deconstruction of these angelic boats or vessels, which is new ufology. New ufology is to deconstruct occult symbolism found within ufology, because we're not going to understand ufology if we don't understand occult symbolism. Yeah. So, for example, if you look at Adamski, Adam, sky, you know, again, Betty Andreson, son of Andra, which is a man. The Ben Adam is the son of man. So we're seeing that even within ufology itself, that there are these signifiers which point to an allegorical or mythological tradition. Remember, the word allosagoria means other speaking. Well, what do we mean by other speaking? Well, allos in Greek is another, one, or it is other or another, and again is connected to etymologies such as allos genes, which is an alien. So other speaking is this veiled discourse which relates to the others. Now the others are represented with halos, which is with a halo. The halo represents the Illuminati, a brother of light. A brother of light is a brother of an angel. A brother of an angel can also be referred to as a Ben Sirius, son of a boat. A son of a boat, again, denotes Sirius. So, and the circle would therefore interconnect with the symbology of both the opening wheel and also this idea of light, which is connected to Sirius, which is this concealed or hidden tradition. Again, as I said before, with Sothis, which is the old word for Sirius, is related to Shed, which is a goblin, ghost, ghoul, or demon, where you get the word El Shaddai. Almighty God. Almighty God connects to Sothis, which is Sirius. So it's pervasive. The symbolism is pervasive, and we have to become literate in terms of symbolism, because the symbols are not only just found within mythology, they're found within the New Age, the New World Order, which is the New Age. They're found within politics as well. So the politicians are forever using this hidden discourse. So they're always using this codified speech. And so we need to become literate within symbols in order to deconstruct the paradigm, in order to free humanity, so that we can become sovereign individuals. This is what we need to do, and we need to become more human, and we need to express our humanity. And therefore, by deconstructing, if you like, scientifically, the spiritual and the imaginal realm, we can also connect to the spiritual realm, the imaginal realm of ideas, and we can become more balanced and gain that equilibrium and gain our humanity, and become balanced with creation, with the universal mind. So that's the intention. It's not to become secular. I would argue quite the opposite. Some people say, oh, well, now we can all go home. Now you've deconstructed what angels are. They're aliens. And so, yeah, we can forget about God. And we can, well, actually, it's much more complex. When you look at near-death experience, and you look at souls, and you look at the communications within the shamanic traditions between human and non-human entities, it's a much more sophisticated picture. And I think it's a picture of hope. I think it's a matter of, it's not dismissing the spiritual, it's quite the opposite. It's proving that the spiritual exists, but it's having the language in order to frame what the spiritual is, and to describe that in a way which doesn't distort or is used to manipulate or cajole people religiously to do terrible crimes, which has happened in the past and does occur, So it's about freedom. It's about emancipation. And I think that we are moving towards emancipation. There's a lot of good things which are occurring. We're moving away from sectarian violence. It still happens, but I do believe that there is a general trend. Again, when I was a kid growing up, everyone, certainly within working class communities, but in general, there was a pervasive racism. And again, that racism, I'm not saying it's disappeared, because it hasn't, but it's beginning to dissipate. And again, sexual prejudice as well, again, is beginning to dissipate. And I think that is a good thing. So I do think that we are moving, in a sense, I feel that we're moving towards somewhat of a polarity. We are moving towards we're becoming more spiritual, but there is also a hard and fast secularism as well, and a cynicism. And so I think that we need to try and find a degree of synthesis, but I'm not talking about the synthesis that the Elohim are talking about in terms of the grafting of bloodlines. I'm actually talking about the synthesis of the human mind, of what it means to be human.
So this gang of players who gave us governments, blood sacrifices, religion, they also gave humanity this idea that they will be saved by their God, whatever that is.
Whatever that is, yeah.
Yeah. Will they be disappointed?
Well, again, this goes into the soul pattern, and when one dies, and again, this is why meditation is seen to be very important, and also dreams. The dream state is the way into the imaginal realm, and therefore within the priesthood and within the traditions, meditation is very important, because it's about controlling the dream state. And therefore, if you can control the dream state, you can control physical reality, but also you understand better the dreamscape. So if you can control the dream lucidly, when you die, then spiritually you are in control. If you're not in control and you die, you can disappear for 10,000 years before it's like, hold on, what's happened here? And the adepts understood this. They understood the connection between meditation, between different levels of consciousness and the dreamscape, and controlling the dreamscape is a key of controlling the soul pattern, and therefore controlling incarnation, and therefore controlling physical and material reality through the dreamscape. And therefore, when you die, you go into the imaginal realm. Now, the imaginal realm is the spiritual realm. It's the realm of all ideas. And this is why when you die and when you read about near-death experience, it's very hallucinogenic. And people say, well, yeah, that's because the brain is dying. But we know that that's not true. And we know that that's not true because a comprehensive study was done by Professor Ring into near-death experience into blind people. And they found out that blind people, when they die, see. So we know, therefore, that it's not a product of the dying brain. But we also know that it's a product fundamentally of reality, of the spiritual reality. And so when you die, you go into the realm of ideas. And it's like a dream. You can be swallowed up by the dream. And in a dream can appear to last a long time, and it's just a short time, or it can last for a short time and it can be a long time, because the time mechanics within a dream seem to be very different. But if you can control the dreamscape, you can control your incarnation. And so you can control your incarnation. And remember that time does not exist. So you, as a soul, you could incarnate into the past or into the future.
But I don't want to.
Well, what would you want to do? I don't know. I would say
it's okay. It's okay.
I think this is a very interesting argument. I would say to you that because you've incarnated as a physical being, you did want to incarnate as a physical being. I would also say that the Gnostics were very derogative of physical reality. They kind of saw it as being a fallen state of the spiritual realm, that the physical was almost a corruption and that the spiritual was something that one should attain. I don't actually look at it that way. I actually think that the universe that we live in is the best version of the universe that we could possibly live in. I also think the universe, the manifestation of the universe is based upon love, and it comes from the imaginal realm. And I think that the universe is this, I actually think it's very beautiful. It's something very special. It's something which should be treasured. And I also, in terms of looking at suffering as well, I don't think it's due to the mechanics of the universe. It's more to do with forgetfulness, and it's and therefore, when enlightenment isn't about trying to attain enlightenment, because I believe that we are enlightened. We are these fantastic spiritual beings. The problem is that we've forgotten this. And therefore, suffering comes about through ignorance because we have forgotten this. And when we look at the universe, zero, not even 0.1% is suffering. Not even that. Suffering is barely there within the physical universe. We think it is because we're so tied up in our own life and our own like, oh, I don't have much money, or it'd be lovely to have more money, or I don't have a nice car, or I don't have a nice girlfriend. And we get so tied up in our own thoughts, but the universe is something which is far bigger and is far more encompassing. And so suffering in the physical universe is not, it's barely present. It's just a blip on the landscape, just a small little blip. And I think that we need to focus on that. We need to focus on the fact that the universe, it expresses itself and it's growing, and it's continually materializing, and it's coming from the imaginal realm. And so therefore the imaginal realm is important. Our ideas are important. If you some people, we've all met people who seem to be lucky. It's like, oh, that person, he's so lucky, he's always lucky. But I would argue that that's to do with the state of mind. And again, that goes back into the imaginal realm of ideas, which plays out in the physical realm.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you see any possibility, let's say, to have a peaceful coexistence with these seraphims? Let's say, please leave our realm, leave us alone, go where you want to go. We leave you alone, you leave us alone. Do you think that's possible?
Do I think it's possible? Well, submission is one way. Or the other way, or the other way is to get out of the game, become a holographic culture and disappear. And I think that elements within the Illuminati, within the human side of the Illuminati, who, shall we say, have a vested interest within the human component, may consider that very seriously, that option. But again, because the information is compartmentalized, that's not necessarily going to be an option for everyone, is it? I think it's it is difficult. I think it's difficult. It's the same with countries. You know, are countries ever going to get to a point where we have world peace? There are so many different variables in that. I'd say yes, it's theoretically possible, but again, that there are so many different variables to balance up. So yes, it is possible, but I also think in terms of the structures which are in place, this is very difficult to attain in practice. I wouldn't say impossible, but I would say problematic, and maybe I wouldn't say insurmountable, but extremely difficult.
Yeah, especially if they think we are their property.
Yeah,
you know,
well,
that's like the cow telling the farmer, you know what, fuck off, I'm not going to give you any milk.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are considered to be inferior and unclean. I mean, that's how a section of the seraphim look upon us. So yeah, so we do have that problem as well. But then again, you know, I'm guessing that humans, when they get their hands on the seraphim, dissect the seraphim, you know what I mean? So we have the similar kind of, shall we say, viciousness about us, or we can have. Again, it wouldn't be that, you know, when you're talking, let's say, about the level of consciousness in terms of a Buddhist monk, and then somebody who is a serial killer, you know, the level of consciousness is completely different. They're both human, but, you know, one is dehumanized. So
in other words, we are coming back to the fact that the real game changer is consciousness.
Absolutely. I think the game changer is consciousness. It always goes back to consciousness. And maybe if we can change ourselves, then the reflection of that will have an impact upon our masters who are above there, who are controlling here. You know, if we can lead by example and not butcher each other, then maybe they'll say, well, you know what, maybe, you know, we may get to a point where they may look at our system and say, well, you know what, their system of government is better than ours. If we make some structural changes, we can alleviate suffering, and we can alleviate the tensions and the conflict that we find within our own different factions, and the sectarianism which are amongst our own species. So yes, I would say that consciousness is the game changer, and we are on a conscious breakthrough. We see it technologically. You know, it's manifested technologically, it's manifested psychically, it's manifested intellectually. So things are changing, and we're at this apex, and we really can. I think that we can make positive changes, and I think that, as I said before, I'm optimistic. I do believe that we can move towards an equilibrium, a balance, and we're seeing that. You know, we're seeing that even within particular movements which are challenging the government, environmental movements. Now, I know that in a sense, environmental movements and large organizations of people can be hijacked and they can be steered, right? And we know that for a fact. And obviously, government agents are always trying to steer organizations. But what we're seeing more and more is individuals standing up to the government. They're communicating to local councils. You know, I wrote a couple of reports about fracking. I just wrote a 400-page book on fracking, and I outlined the legal arguments why it was illegal. Now, I did that because I wanted to make a change. I wanted to make a difference. You know, I wasn't interested in fracking, and I didn't really want to do it. It was a big waste of my time. You know, it's like, you know, this is a no-brainer. Everybody knows that it's poisoning the water supply, so why do it? Right? But anyway, I felt compelled that we needed to do that. We needed to preserve the water supply. But I'm not the only person. And I say to your audience, you need to go out there and you need to figure out what you're good at. If you're good at listening, set up a YouTube channel, just like what you've done, Judith. You know, if you're good at blogging, blog, start communicating some of your ideas. And some of you, it might just be going into work and talking to your colleagues and not being worried about what people think. I was a teacher for a number of years, and I used to go into the staff room, and I was a supply teacher, so I would move from different schools, and I would talk about this stuff all the time. And I would get, and I was always surprised how much people were willing to engage with what I was talking about and the information. And I think, sometimes people in the alternative media are interested in the alternative viewpoint, are sometimes a little bit narrow-minded themselves. They say, oh, well, I can't talk about this because nobody would understand this. But in actual fact, you might be actually surprised how much that if you open up and you're honest with somebody, that they will open up, and you might actually find that you have more in common than what you don't. So I would say start communicating what you think. Don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And live that, and try and be impeccable in your conduct with other people. It's not difficult. It's being polite, simple things. If somebody leaves a nasty comment on your social media, try and rise above it. Try and be polite. Try and lead by example, and try and be a better person. And as we said before, there's a ripple effect. If one person like with me, the council didn't really know about fluoride in terms of fracking. And again, I wrote fluoride reports to talk about the fluoridation of water. And so it was a matter of educating those individuals. And it is possible to effectuate change. You don't, it's like I've got a friend, and he's a great friend, and I've grown up with him, but he's kind of the polar opposite of what I am. So he's a realist. I'm an idealist. He's an absolutist. Right is right, and we deal with facts. Always deal with facts. I deal with, well, how do we know that it's a fact? I'm always continually skeptical. And he said to me, because I haven't voted for 20 years. He said, "Well, you don't have a right to say. You don't have a right to an opinion politically." And I said, "Actually, you're wrong there." I said,
"You don't have a right because you voted these idiots in."
Well, there's a counter argument. Yeah, I said, well, politically, I've done, I've educated the council about fluoride. I did a 400-page fluoride report. I did two fracking reports, which again was 400 pages. I've engaged politically more than what most people do in several lifetimes, but I'd never voted. Well, I did when I was 19, but okay, I was a little bit when I was 19, but there you are. So it is possible to engage politically whilst not buying into the system. And I would say to the viewers, get engaged, do what you do the best. And again, it doesn't have to be a lot. It can just be it can be something which is you don't need to write a 400-page report on fracking. You might just want to deliver some leaflets around your neighborhood about that fracking is not a clever idea. It's going to poison the water supply. Or you might want to engage on social media, or you just might want to send somebody a nice message to say that you care about them. It could be just as simple as that. So,
yeah. Wonderful final words. And I have to say, what am I doing here? Okay. So now I have to say, I have to listen to this a couple of times. There is so much information jammed into
yeah.
And
I do that sometimes.
I have to listen to this a couple of times and let it sink in. But I thank you so much for coming. And
well, it's been great. I've loved speaking to you, Judith. It's been fantastic. And I think that, like what you're doing, you are part of the change. You have said, enough is enough. What can I do to effectuate a change? What can I do to effectuate a positive change within society? And you're doing that. You're putting out information, different viewpoints, and you're educating people, and you're educating yourself. And as you educate yourself more, the change will become more profound. Because again, it's the microcosm and the macrocosm. The smallest change always has a ripple, and it becomes a big ripple. Yeah. So the singularity created the universe. Okay. And the universe created the singularity. There is no difference.
So guys, this was it. I hope you had fun. This was Night Flight for today. And I hope Pierre is coming back one day.
That'd be great.
We will continue our conversation. And until then,
thank you very much.
Take good care of yourselves. Stay safe and sound. Bye-bye.
Bye.